everybody, and welcome to today's after school club. Today is Make It Day, it's Wednesday, and oopsies, make sure I don't hit my camera. Holy moly, stop moving. There we go. My name is Kim. I am a community learning specialist here at Do Space, and today we are in part 2 of making our phototheremin kit. So hopefully, if you joined us last week, and if you were one of our folks that picked up our kit, we are making essentially this guy. And just as a reminder, this is a device that through a photocell or a light, basically a light detector, in the kind of most basic terms, through other components on our board, will make noise. So depending on how much light. And so it was working last week. It was working just a few minutes ago. Sometimes I'm not hearing it now. Sometimes when we're working with like materials like these, if you're not soldering, things, could get a little bit, iffy if things work or not. But hopefully, if you are joining us, I'm trying to hear it. And it might be my battery. I think I had my battery on it. And so I might have drained my battery, which is kind of a bummer. So that's okay. But we have, basically this is what we're making, a device that will emit sound. So we have like a little microphone back here. And if you were with us last week, we put down all of our conductive tape, our copper tape to make our path. And today we are going to be putting down our components and kind of talking about what those components do as we put them down. So hopefully you have if you have your kit, you followed along and you got up to the point of putting up all of our copper tape. And then for today, the things we are going to need are basically your smaller components. So we are going to need, if we look at our list, we are going to need 2 transistors. One is a 2N3904 transistor, and one is a 2N3906. And I'm not even going to try to get these close enough for you to see, but in your kits you should have 2 of them. Some of them may look differently, some of them may look the same, but they should be different, and you will be able to tell because very, very small and very light will be printed on basically the flat sides. You can kind of see that they're rounded on one side and flat on the other. On the flat side, you should be able to see the numbers. So you should have a 3904 and a 3906 transistor. So you'll need those. We are also needing a ceramic capacitor that will look like this. You are going to need your photocell. That's going to look like this. We are going to need your speaker, which is going to look like this. And we are going to need the rest of your copper tape or your blue tape if you want to use that to kind of stick things down. And you should have in your kit, the rest of your kit, 2 coin cell batteries, 3-volt coin cell batteries that look like this. So yeah, so let's get started. So basically, the first thing we are going to put down is our transistors. So but I kind of want to talk a little bit about our transistors. So, so these are our transistors. Basically, what we're making, just as a review, is a device that, like I said, when light gets, depending on how much light is present. Oh, here, let me get on our photocell, and how much light we are allowing it to get in, will emit a noise. And basically our 3 components on here, our 2 transistors and our capacitor, are creating the tones in which come out of our speaker. And that is because based off what they do, help kind of ebb and flow the current of the electricity coming from our batteries. So if we kind of think of our circuit, kind of think of it as a circuit. A lot of times if we think of it as a circle, we have like our electricity coming from something, from our batteries. A lot of times that's connected to something that's called a like an input, so maybe a switch. So if you think of your light switch on your light, when you pop it, when you flip up the light switch, your light turns on and you're completing the circuit. And when you're turning it down, you're feeding it information. You're telling it, I want the light on and I want the light off. And depending on how that works, that electricity is then flowing to an output, your output being your light. In this case, our output is going to be noise coming from our microphone. And so if you kind of think of the flow of the electricity coming from our batteries as water, a lot of times there's like electricity, you kind of think of it as water. So it's called a current. So, if you think of a river, the current of a river might be really high, so that means that it's really fast. The water is flowing through the river really fast, or the current might be really low and slow, and so it's kind of just like a trickle. Electricity can, kind of be manipulated in a way that we can have a lot of electricity coming to an output, like a light or a microphone, or very little. So, and that's where our resistors, our capacitors and our transistors come into play. So the first thing I kind of want to talk about is our transistors. So our transistors, they are, if you kind of you may have heard of transistor before, kind of an old school, like even before my time. It's a thing called like a transistor radio. That was back in the 1970s. We're gonna say yes. But anymore, like any electrical component, computers, basically have a lot of little transistors, and kind of basically they're kind of like little, I don't know, little brain cells. They kind of help tell our computer what to do. In terms of our circuit here, ours is going to be kind of helping tell our microphone how loud to make a tone or not, and because it's kind of they're working as amplifiers. So basically, when these transistors work as an amplifier, it takes a very little tiny electric current. So the flow in which our electricity is coming from our battery to our output, which is our microphone. And so it might take one that might be a small or a little current, and it will make a much bigger electric current. So basically, it goes in one side, and then like as it's going from our negative to positive, it's amplifying it. It's creating a bigger output of a current of that electricity. So it works as a booster. So if you think of, maybe a hearing aid, somebody's hearing aid, if somebody is hard of hearing or partially deaf, your hearing aid takes maybe something that they can't hear very well and amplifies it so they can hear it. And so they pick that up. So it kind of works as like a tiny loudspeaker in somebody's ear. And so transistors allow it to get outside voices or noises from outside of the ear into that hearing aid. Transistors allow it to kind of be louder inside their ear so somebody can hear. And so because our current and basically our current is going to be pretty low, and we have a pretty simple circuit, these transistors are going to help amplify the current, so once it gets to our microphone, a noise is emitted. So that's how our transistors work. They're basically amplifying, or they're making the current be bigger to our microphone so it emits a noise, a louder noise. So that is our transistor. So let's put those down first. So one of the first things I'm actually going to have us do, I'm going to move this, is hopefully there should be you should see some circles. And we need to basically hole punch or put some holes where those circles are. So you can really do this anyway. There we go. If you have a hole punch, you can just hole punch in those circles, just like this. If you don't have a hole punch, you might, use like a sharpened pencil, just something to get. We're just needing, this one you might need a little bit bigger because the hole where your photocell needs to be at least big enough to get the photocell through to the other side. For the speaker wires, it just needs to be big enough so that the wires can get through. So it doesn't need to be as large. But before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So we are going to put our first transistors down. And so the first transistor we're going to put down is the 2N3906. And so again, I'm not even going to try to zoom in or put this close enough to the camera for you to see. You are just going to have to look, and maybe you might need a grown-up to help you if you're a little bit younger. But you are wanting to look and see which one is your. And you might even have to, right now, I'm kind of having to angle the flat side kind of towards the light so I can see it a little bit better and it almost reflects. So I know this one for me is my 3906, and that's the one we need, our 3906 transistor. So what we are going to do, we can see that there are 3 leads, or basically legs to them. We have our 1, 2, 3, and we are going to basically splay them out so that some of this stuff. We're going to splay them out so we have one leg lying on this part of our path. We have one leg lying on this part of our path, and we have our third leg lying on this part. So, and we can actually even see how and it's a little bit covered, but even the shape that is on your paper looks almost like a backwards D. And so that's how for me, that's how we're going to place it, is like a backwards D. So the flush side is going to be facing, or the flat side is going to be facing to the right, and the rounded side is going to be facing to the left. So what I'm going to do is just kind of do a general kind of splaying like this. Top leg up, the middle leg to the front, and then the bottom leg down. So it's going to look kind of like this. See if I can make it lay flat on my hand. So kind of look like that. And then you can adjust it as you need to. So you're gonna come down, and as long as it's nice and flush with our copper tape that's conductive, then we should be go. And then I'm just going to, again, we have our copper tape. Right now we're just using this because we kind of talked about this last week. The non-sticky side is much more conductive, or allows electricity to flow through it much easier than the sticky side on the back of it. So, but the sticky side does allow a little bit to come through, so it's not completely not conductive. But right now we're just kind of using it as additional tape to stick things on. So I'm just going to take a little bit off, and then we are just going to press down the legs of our 3906 transistor where it needs to go on our path. And again, if you need to, it's so much easier to kind of if you need to just take your fingertip and kind of roll, you can just roll down the copper tape. That's a little bit easier than trying to for example, if I go to the other end, maybe. It's a lot easier to do it here's my copper tape, it's facing my finger. to do it that way than to try and pick the white part off the back. So it's easier just to do this to kind of get an edge to bring it down. As I'm like, not, and I have nails, so it makes it a little bit easier, but like, yeah, so it's a little bit easier that way. And then if you still had a tail, it's just easy to pull down the white tail. Okay, so I'm gonna put down the last piece and okay, so that is your first transistor. We're going to do the same to your second one. Again, to verify that it is the 3904, you're just want to, on the flat side, we'll have the number. It's way too hard to see. And you can see where we're going to be putting it right here in the 3904 transistor area. And you can see that here the D is facing to the right, or the curve of the D part is facing to the right. So if you kind of look at it, looks like a D. So then here you're going to have to kind of like adjust. So if I'm going to be kind of like adjusting. If I orient it so like the legs are going, you know, top to bottom, you know, kind of like this, making a line. I see my D. I have the flat side facing to the left, the rounded side facing to the right. This top leg or lead, I'm going to kind of bring up into the right a little bit because we're wanting to bring it over to this this path right here. So I'm going to bring it just kind of like up and over. And again, after you kind of get them all kind of spread out, your leads, then you can kind of adjust from there. So then the middle one is going to go, this middle lead is going to go right here. So you're kind of put that out like straight behind it. And then the bottom lead is going down here. Okay, and so what I'm going to do, yeah. And kind of a trick that I like to do is like, I kind of like to put the legs like kind of where they're almost like facing down a little bit, like towards the table, so that when I press down, then they don't kind of splay up. So I just want to make sure that they're going to be pressing down on our copper tape really, really well. So you can kind of see, oh, it's so glary with the light. You can kind of see how all the leads are touching our copper tape really, really well. And so then we will just get those taped down with our copper tape. Or if you ran out of copper tape, you can always use the blue painter's tape or Scotch tape. Really, it's just, these parts aren't as aren't as important to the conductivity, more just like keeping them in place and making sure there's a good connection onto our already our copper tape that we put down last week. Make those good connections. Okay. Gonna put that down. Okay. So the next component we are going to be putting down is our capacitor. And you may have heard of a capacitor before as well. Maybe you haven't if you're new to circuitry. So a lot of times, you know, basically, again, like almost every electrical component, you know, has capacitors. Capacitors, they kind of help regulate, again, also, they kind of help regulate the flow. So in a way, in fact, in the way that they're like little storage units. They store energy. They have the ability to store the electricity that is coming from our batteries. So if you think of it like a rechargeable battery, it's almost kind of like that is like a capacitor. It has the ability to store, and so this just allows so if they need to, so like I said, our transistors kind of like amplify the current, so making it bigger. Oops, I got a little. And then our capacitors, they just help, like again, they store the electrical charge. And they just help make sure that not too much of our electricity is getting to our output. So for example, if our light is off, it can like store a little bit of electricity in here. And so for example, if we had for some reason, if we had this all connected and we had we connected it, we connected our battery, and then we kept it on, and then we took the battery away. In theory, a little bit of electricity could be coming from our capacitor for like maybe a moment or two to amplify our microphone, because it has the capability to store electricity. So that is what we're going to be doing next. So we are putting our capacitor right where it says capacitor. And these are, so we kind of talked about, if you were here a couple weeks ago, when we made our alarm, our room alarm, we had some things that were components that were polar. They're polarized. I feel like there's another word I'm looking for. Polarized, basically. Like, for example, our batteries are polarized. There is a positive end and a negative. There's a positive side and a negative side. Batteries all have poles. There's a positive side and a negative side. Other components are polarized. For our example, our little microphone or speaker is polarized, and we know this because the wires coming are represented in red and in black, and that usually represents like this wire needs to be connected to the positive path that's connected to the positive side of our battery, and this black wire needs to be connected to the negative path that is connected to the negative side of our battery. LED diodes, LEDs are polarized. They have two, leads just like this, and they have to be placed in a certain way, otherwise they won't work. But not all components are like that, and capacitors are not like that. These are not polarized. So I can place this really either way. So as long as I have my legs splayed out, and it's just going to be going right there. And as long as they're touching our copper tape, it does not matter the orientation of it. So it's going to be going right there. Just like that. And if it kind of sits up, that's fine. We just need to make sure the leads or the legs are touching our path. And it can go face this way. It can face this way again. The orientation of it doesn't matter, just as long as it's touching our copper tape path. There we are. So I'm going to put that down like that. And then put it down like that. Okay. So the next thing we are going to add is our photocell. So the photocell goes right up here, and This is our photocell. So what is a photocell? So basically, photocells, they work off the energy that light produce. There's light has its own kind of light wave, energy wave to it, and photocells work based off of this light energy that comes from the light of the sun or things like that. And so based off of things like that. So, for example, things that might use like it's called a photoelectric cell, photocell for short. So some other things that might use photoelectricity cells or electric cells. If you've ever used one of the hand washers that sometimes they might have like motion, or they might have like a distance, but they also might have a photocell. Basically, if you've ever used a calculator with like a little built-in solar panel, so you didn't necessarily have to have batteries connected to it, that's a photocell. For our younger kids, you may not have had to use those before. That is something I had to use growing up. You may not have to use that. Our grown-ups watching probably have. Maybe if you're a little bit older and you're, doing math for the first time and you need a calculator, it might have one of those like you might have like some little, looks like a rectangle, and like little rectangles within that long rectangle. And basically, if you didn't have batteries in it and you were outside in the sun, it would work. Or if you had light from your light switch, light above, it would work. So, solar panels are kind of an example of a photocell. So they also kind of a little bit work like as a light sensor. So allowing, it will work if we have light coming into it. And if we, were to cover it, light is not allowing to be in. And so therefore, our circuit might not be complete and not work. So our photocell is going to go right up here in this circle. Now, our you can see that it kind of has this little nubbin on top. We want that actually on the back side. We want that facing the back part. I'm now realizing I should have put my colorful part of my cereal box on this side so it looks prettier, but that's okay. So that's going to go onto the back side of facing it with our leads sticking out, because we want our leads to touch our copper tape, and we are needing it to come up this way. Now, I'm now realizing something. So when I put my copper tape down to secure my capacitor, I kind of had a longer piece, and I covered up some of the tape, most of the tape that I had placed down as my path. So I'm actually going to bring that up a little bit and pull it up and kind of tear it off. Ooh, hopefully I don't screw things up, or maybe I might replace that. Just because we want to make sure. I'm going to redo that. Yeah. Oh, that's just some of that. Okay. Oh, okay. I see what I did. This part, a little bit, I've realized, is the tape that I put down to secure this piece to that piece. Okay, so I think it's fine. You just want to make sure, basically, ultimately, this is what I'm trying to say, in a not very articulate way, is that we are wanting to make sure that our leads of our photocells are touching the parts of the path that are going to be connected to our battery. So for example, it might be a little bit tricky to see. So right now, and this is why I probably should have used the blue tape, but that's okay, because it all comes together. So I put down the initial path from, this, basically from our transistor to this part of the path here. Put a little bit of tape down, because if you joined us last week, we made little tabs so that we had a really good connection, and then we secured the tabs down with more copper tape. And the same with up here. You can kind of even a little bit see there's a little spot right there. Let's see if I can kind of get a little bit closer. Yeah, there we go. That's better. That is the tape that I put down to basically connect this piece to that piece. I am just wanting to make sure that there's like a little sliver right here, and I can, the leads are long enough that I could even probably bring it up here. We just want to make sure that your leads are touching the bottommost path as much as it can. You don't want it to be on top of like the securing tape, if that makes sense. So of the tabs that we put down. So again, our photocell is not polarized, so it doesn't matter its orientation. So the legs doesn't matter which one goes where. So I'm going to be pressing this kind of down. And again, my leg is long enough that I can actually even just like even bend it. Let's see if I can. There we go. You can kind of see how I bend it like an L, like an upside down L. And I can just secure that it's going to be even just kind of going around this corner. So I'm going to make sure, so now I know basically it's like touching on both sides. Even though it's touching this upper part, that's okay. It's still going to, that's going to be fine, because it's going to be touching this side, going through it, and then coming over here. So if that all makes sense. So I'm just going to put that down. A lot of copper tape, which is pretty. I think it's pretty. It's like rose gold, and I love rose gold. Fun facts about me. Okay, so we're going to secure that down and making sure that it is touching our bottommost path. I hope that makes sense. I just want to make sure that where the path where our electricity is flowing from our batteries, we just want the metal to be touching those. Okay. And then I'm just going to kind of bend it so it's a little bit flush. And then this side, we want to bend down, and I am going to actually bend it a little bit, because I think that's what I did on this one. Yes, it is. You can kind of see on this one, maybe if I can get it to, come on, focus please. It might not focus. Let's see. You can see how it's kind of curling over. I'm going to do the same over here, where it's like I have a little bit of a part like right here. That's like basically right there is my bottommost path, and then I'm going to have some over here. So I'm going to basically do the same, where I'm bending it like an L. See if you can see that. It's like an L right there, and securing that down. And so we have now connected our photocell. So the last component that we are needing to, well, it's kind of second to last, that we are needing to secure is our speaker. Okay, so thankfully this speaker, you don't have to see if it has a plus, like which wires the positive side, which wires negative side, because of the red and black insulator that is around the wiring. And so that makes it nice and easy. So we are wanting, you can see our speaker is going to be going right down here, and we can see our right hole has the plus sign. So we want our red wire coming through this hole, and then our left hole has the negative sign. So we want our black wire coming through here. So again, I mean, I guess it's up to you. I mean, it makes, no, we have to have it on this side. I'm kind of thinking through. I mean, technically, if you wanted to, you could have the speaker over here and adjust. You would just have to kind of like tape it down. Or you can do it like I did, where I had the speaker on the other side. It probably would be better so you could hear it, like, it will make sense. So I would say let's do it like this. So you want to have your speaker on the back side, and so you're just going to make sure that your red wire is coming through our right. I'm not going to throw in an audible. I almost threw in an audible for you guys. Let's not do that yet. And then, okay, so our black wire is coming through this hole. Our red wire is coming through this hole. And we are just wanting to make sure that we're placing our wires in the correct spot. So our negative wire, we are going to be connecting it right down to this bottom one. Because, actually, here's my battery. Like I said, we talked about batteries have a positive side, or this positive and a negative side or end or whatever. Our top shiny side, and there's even like a little, you can kind of see it's hard. Oh, there we are. There's a little positive side. That is obviously our positive end. That's going to be facing up. And our negative side that has like a little bit of there's a little bit of a texture to it. That's going to be touching this one, this path. So this path is going to be our negative path, going from positive to negative. Or negative to positive. So we are wanting our wire to touch this path down here. Whew, I'm just going to have enough copper tape to secure these two. Very excited about it. So just want to make sure that we are black wire. The black wiring is getting secure down to the path that is on the bottom, basically right by our negative, the holes that our wires are coming through. So I'm going to kind of like do that. There we go. Make sure that's down and secure. And then our positive wire is going to be coming up here. And that is because we kind of see it. Well, let's get it secure and we'll talk about why we're going up there. So we are putting, so we have our transistor, the first one that we put down, our transistor 3906. We want to secure our red wire to the same path that the one that was facing down was secured to. And again, you want to try and secure it because I have a little bit of overlap tape here and an overlap tape here. You are wanting to put the wire from our red, we want to secure our red wire to the part of the copper tape path that is, I don't know, the most original, the lowest end. Okay, so just like that. And that is because, so we have, like again, we have our battery, our positive. So you can see, it's a little bit tricky with our transistors, but we can at least with the negative. So a lot of, with circuits, the electrons, because it's the electrons that are built in, that are kind of like stored up into these batteries that create the electricity that powers our circuits. So the electrons are flowing, aka the current, are flowing from the negative side of our battery, let's not use one in a package, to the positive. So if our negative side of our battery is touching this path right here, then those electrons are going to be flowing from down here to here. So it's going to be flowing to our speaker, this side of our speaker, and then it's going up to this transistor. This transistor is our electrons are kind of getting split up from here. So we're having some going this way and some going this way, which then we have electrons. So then this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky, because then we have electrons coming from like here. The electrons that are flowing from here are coming down here to the capacitor, where it doesn't matter, doesn't have a positive or negative, and then over to our red wire right here, which we have this transistor. So the orientation of our transistors are polarized, I believe. I should have looked that up, to be honest. But they have to be, because this side is probably going from, you know, our middle, which is probably just like a neutral ground, to this side here, over. So our positive. So it's going back over here. So basically it's kind of making a loop, a little bit like that. But it's splitting out, so it's going through our transistors. So the transistors are again, they're amplifying. They're kind of making the flow, like giving a boost, and then the capacitors are storing it. So when we then connect our battery, the flow of the electricity is going through all of these different components, and based off how much light is being given to, for lack of a better way, what am I trying to say? How much light is being exposed, that's the word I'm looking for, exposed to our light cell, then the tone are going to be different. So we want to like kind of put down this tone. Now, I believe, and I'm thinking, I don't think I brought it over. You had a little like foam double-sided like foam piece that was part of your kit. I thought that was going to work when I was going to give it to you, that you would be able to peel it off, that parchment paper pretty easily, and use it. A couple weeks ago with our alarm, our room alarm, found out the hard way that didn't work. So this is what I suggest, is just taping it down. So if you have tape, you can just tape it down as you need to. So I'm just going to kind of tape it down just like this, just to keep it in place. I mean, it's pretty secure. It's not going anywhere. So once we make our, once we put our battery, and we can put two. So I'm just doing one right now, but you can put two. Like if I were to undo this, maybe. Should have taken it out of its package. So if you were going to do two, and if we were going to stack them, you want to stack them kind of like one right on top of each other, just like this. So you don't want the like positive, negative. You don't want the negatives to be touching or the positives to be touching. You want like a negative side on top of a positive side. And if you connect those like this and then bring, see, I don't think it works as well with the two. I think it works better with one. Start out with one, see what you think. So I'm going to bring this to the, it is working. I can hear it. I'm going to bring it to the mic, so you might not see it. I'm going to hope you can hear it. Hopefully yours is working. I think it's working. I think hopefully you can hear. Basically, I'm just using my finger, and the closer my finger is to the light sensor or the photocell, the lower the tone is, and the higher it is, the higher the tone. So it's even more like just like how much I'm pressing onto it, allowing that light in. And basically when it's like, it's probably working right now with my finger, it's just at such a high tone, our ears can't even. But yeah, your speaker, hopefully yours is working. So It's not super loud, but at least it kind of gives you a really easy craft and like getting into circuitry. So, and I think it's just kind of fun to play with. I could have drained my battery in that other one because I was doing this earlier this week. So anyway, so yeah, that is your Phototheron device using transistors, a capacitor, a photocell, and some speakers. Again, I'm hoping you can hear that. Let me know if yours worked. I really hope it did. Okay, friends, thank you so much for joining me in our making this kit. Next month is it's going to be a four-parter. There are 5 Wednesdays, but we are going to, the third Wednesday of the month, we are going to be skipping because it's a lot of people's friends, viewers, what's it called, spring break, there we go. And so we are going to be doing the first 2 Wednesdays and the last 2 Wednesdays of the month of March. And we are going to be making really fun, like, we're continuing our circuit theme. I love circuits, so I like working with them. They're a lot of fun. But we're doing a different spin. We are going to be working with sewn circuits. And so we are going to be doing a sewing aspect where we are making a little plushy monster that has a light up aspect to it. So hopefully, as of this morning, I know that there were, and it is, if you're watching this not live, it is the 24th of February. I know as of this morning there were about 24, or sorry, not 24. There were 11 kits that were reserved, so there was 9 available. So if you're interested in that, I should have checked before before the stream to see if there was any ones available. But if you're interested, I believe the form is on our calendar at dospace.org. And then if you go to like the first Wednesday of the month for Make It and open that up, you should be able to find the form. If you can't, please email us at programs@dospace.org. Programs, that's plural, programs at dospace.org. Also, if you joined us for today, make sure you are checking out our Beanstack, which is okay, last week, or maybe at some other point, I was talking about this and I've been telling people the wrong URL. It's dospace.beanstack.org, like Jack and the Beanstalk, dospace.beanstack.org. And if you haven't already signed up for an account, make sure you do. Doing our challenges, doing our badges, and if you do activities like our after school club, you can get tickets to and then be in drawings to win really fun prizes. So hopefully you do that. Well, you guys, thank you so much for joining me for After School Club Make It, and hopefully you can join us next month for our plushy sewn circuit monsters. So have a good day. Bye-bye.